Hello, today I'm talking to Wendy Clarke. Hey, Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself?
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's really lovely. Um, so I'm Wendy Clarke, and I am a writer of psychological thrillers for Bookouture. But before I did that, I was known for being a short story writer for magazines. I've written for Women's Weekly, Take a Break Fiction Feast. I was a regular writer for The People's Friend, and I wrote for magazines for about about 8 years before I wrote started my novels. Um, and so I suppose I sort of view that as being a type of apprenticeship, and it definitely helped when it came to submitting my novel and writing my letter to agents and to publishers. I think that did help, having that sort of background rather than coming into it cold. So say I've written 4 psychological thrillers, and I have them here. So I'll just show you quickly. This was my first one, What She Saw. That one set in the Lake District, so that was my debut. And this one won the Flash 500 novel competition, so I'm very proud of that one. My second one was We Were Sisters, which is set in Sussex, near my hometown. Well, it's actually set in my hometown, but I call it a different name. And then my third novel was The Bride, and that came out last year. And then my most recent novel is His Hidden Wife, which came out on the 4th of February. So this is my new baby, and yeah, it's doing very well at the minute. So that's me really. So I've moved away from magazine writing, which is good in some ways and exciting in some ways, and sad in others, because I loved writing for the magazines, but I just didn't have time to write short stories and my novels, even though I actually thought I was going to be able to, and then realized I couldn't. Um, so I had to give it up. I had to give it up, and I was really sad, but it was a wonderful time, that period. And this is an exciting time too. So onwards and upwards.
Yeah. And did you always want to be a writer?
Um, no, I didn't. Never thought about it, to be honest. I've always liked writing. When I was at school, it was my favourite subject. English was always my best subject. Um, I became a teacher, and I was an English teacher in a private primary school. And I remember sort of teaching. I was teaching how to write short stories in one of the lessons, and I used to get so jealous of the children having to write these stories when I wanted to write it myself. And I just kept thinking, I don't want to be marking this. I don't want to be telling the children how to write it. I want to actually be writing it. And then the children were saying, well, why don't you write it as well? And I said, well, I can't, because I'm your teacher. It's not I can't be writing it at the same time as you. And I always remembered that. So when I was made redundant, because it was a very small private school and it didn't weather the recession. So when it closed down and I was left with no job and not really knowing what to do next, whether I wanted to remain in teaching or not, I did a writing course, an online writing course, just a short one. I loved it. And then I did a second online writing course, and I loved that even more. And I suppose that was how it started, because when I wasn't sure what I was going to do, something in my head was saying, "But you used to love, well, not love teaching. Well, I did love teaching, but I wanted to be doing the writing, not just teaching the writing." Um, So yes, that was the start. But if I hadn't have been made redundant, I probably wouldn't be writing now. I'm sure I wouldn't. I'd still be teaching. And lovely as that was, I feel like I would have been missing out on that next stage of my career or next stage of my life. And this has just been wonderful. It was definitely the silver lining. And it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, what was the end of the half term? Um, the February half term 10 years ago that I lost my job. And I just think, gosh, I never knew that this is what I was going to be doing. So, yeah, in a nutshell, no, I had no idea I was going to be a writer.
And what made you take the plunge from writing short stories and magazines to writing a novel?
Um, I think it was because I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm quite ambitious when it comes to writing. I'm not ambitious in anything else in any other walk of my life, but I'm really ambitious when it comes to writing, and I'm always wanting to do the next thing. And so when I was writing short stories, it was, well, what can I do next? To challenge myself. And the next challenge was to see if I could write a serial. And I wrote serials for The People's Friends for a few years. And then it was, well, I've written serials. What can my next challenge be? Well, the next length of writing would be a novel. And I know it was quite a lot longer than a serial. And I just thought, well, I'll write that novel alongside my magazine short stories, which I could do because I wasn't under contract. So that novel could take as long as it wanted because I could just fit it in between my magazine story writing. And I suppose once I'd written one and I thought, oh, I've done it, I've written this, it became easier to write a second. And the second one was the one that got my publisher and became What She Saw. So yes, I suppose I thought of it as a challenge.
Wow. Yeah. And were you a big reader as a child?
Yes. I've always read, always loved reading. And I was always read to at bedtime. Like my mum and my dad used to take turns to read me stories when I went to bed, and I think that start was what then made me really want to read. By the time I got to the age where I could read by myself, that grounding of my parents reading to me was always there within me. So, and it's nice actually because one of the stories that I remember it was my dad read me this one. It was a children's book called Marianne Dreams. And it was quite old. It was written in the 1950s. I think it was like 1958. And it was this wonderful story of a child who she was ill. And while she was in bed ill, she found her grandmother's pencil and she used that to draw a house and a field of long grass, and then and a window with a face in the window. And then that night when she slept, that came to life in her dream. And I had such a vivid memory of that house all on its own in this field of waving grass. And it was really eerie. It was probably my first psychological thriller, even though it was written for children. It was really scary. And that scene of a house and a meadow with waving grass and that sort of eerie feeling when you're a young child, that became the setting for my second novel, We Were Sisters. So that is quite a sort of big thing for me, is this memory of being read to. So yeah, I've always been a reader. Love my books.
And what did you read as you were growing up? And then what do you read? Do you still read now? Do you get time?
Yeah, as I say, I was read to a lot when I was little. I loved The Secret Garden. I loved Tom's Midnight Garden, and basically anything with gardens in. I think everything I've mentioned had a garden, a field. I like The Famous Five, Manini Blyton. That was something I read when I was little. Now I read a lot of psychological thrillers, but I don't read them when I'm writing. So if I'm in this stage of writing where I'm actually writing my own book, I leave the thrillers and I try and read something in a different genre. And then once I've finished that and I'm on to the editing stage, or if I'm in a period where I haven't got anything to do with my own book, then I start reading all the psychological thrillers again. I love Lisa Jewell. She's my favourite thriller writer. I love Amanda Jennings. I love her thrillers. And I've just read a wonderful book by Kristen Hanna, which is set in Alaska. It's called, oh, here we go. When I'm asked a direct question, I can't remember the name of it. Nah, it's gone. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful book based in Alaska. And that's, I just like anything with an evocative setting. And that was just beautiful. So yeah, I read quite a lot of different things, depending on what stage I'm at with my own work.
Have you read Where the Crawdads Sing?
I have. I did. I read that last summer. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. For that exact reason. It was being in that marsh. I mean, you were just living in that place. I loved it. Anything. I know not everybody likes description especially in their psychological thrillers, but I do. And I think that Lisa Jewell does that beautifully. I think she does really good descriptions, but not in a boring way. And I think that for me, a setting and a description of a setting can just bring your drama to life, and it can make it as even more dramatic or scary if you get it right. So yeah, but Crawdads was great.
Yeah, that is one that nailed it without question. You know, you literally felt like you were in the marsh and the heat and the bugs, and yeah,
I know.
it's special. I think that I wasn't expecting to enjoy it either at the beginning, but yeah, once
Yes.
I got to the end, I was like, wow, what have I just read?
Yeah, exactly. I've just remembered the name of the book. I couldn't remember. It was The Great Alone. And I think for the same reason as The Crawdads, that was a harsh landscape, a harsh, cold, snowy landscape. And again, it had that same feeling. You just felt like you were actually there. You almost like you experience the cold and the, oh, great book.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to add that to my TBR, I think.
Oh, do.
Yeah.
You'll love it. You'll love it. And it is a mystery as well. You know, it does get exciting at the end. So yeah, that's my recommendation to everybody. Apart
Awesome.
from
Yeah. Of course. that's
all of
that's
them.
a given. Would you like to be a character in any of your books?
I wouldn't like to be a main character, that's for sure, because bad things always seem to happen to the main characters in a psychological thriller, and also the protagonists in my books usually have some sort of internal conflict going on and sort of problems and issues, and I have enough of that in my own life. I don't really want to have don't want to share my characters' problems. I wouldn't mind being a minor character. In fact, I'd quite like to be Beth in What She Saw, because that was quite nice. She was a teenager, and she was experiencing her first love, her first proper love, and that was lovely to write. I had to sort of draw on memories from when I was young, and that was lovely to have those feelings. And Well, I can't tell you too much about whether anything bad happens to her, but I think she'd be a good character to be. And also, she does a lot of walking in the Lake District, which is just one of my all-time favourite places in our country. And you know, if I'm Beth, it means I can be doing lots of walking, and I can be in the company of a good-looking photographer. So that's fine. I'll be Beth.
Yep, I like the way you think. What do you enjoy most about writing, and what do you dislike?
um, I like well, there's whether what I like about writing was like being a about being a writer. About being a writer, I like it. I like having my own timetable, being able to write when I want to and write around other things that I'm doing. And it's lovely to be home. It's lovely to be able to work from home. Yeah, I know I'm very lucky in that I'm in the position that I do write full time, and I don't go and do another job. So I know not everybody can do that. So I'm very privileged in being able to do that. Um, the writing itself, I suppose it's sort of being able to create situations that I would maybe wouldn't want to be in, or definitely wouldn't want to be in. Um, and that's quite nice to be able to experience something, but not actually have to actually be there and do it yourself, but you can just experience it through one of your characters and make them do things that you wouldn't do, but you might wonder what it might be like to do it. So that's probably what I like the best. I love creating new places. I usually choose real places and change them. So people can often recognize where I'm writing about, but I can say, well, it isn't that place because I made it up. It's got a different name. So yeah, so that's probably what I like
And
best about writing.
what do you dislike?
I dislike structural edits. I hate that bit, and yet that's something that some people love. Some people really like that stage because it is the first stage where you work with your editor. Um, and I love working with my editor. I have a fabulous editor, but I know she's going to make me do things that I might not want to do, and I always do it. I'm really good, and she always makes my books better. So whatever she suggests are always the right thing. But I have on occasion had to take out whole characters, which might end up being a third of a book, and then having to put their story in the book, but not in their own voices. So it's the bit where you have to hold your breath and think, oh no, what am I going to have to do that will shake up everything and rearrange everything? So probably that's my worst bit. And maybe
Yeah.
getting a bad review. I don't like bad reviews. So everybody write me some nice ones. Never write me bad ones. Luckily, I have some lovely ones, so it's good.
And what's the most interesting thing you found when researching your books?
Um, I've I've found lots of I found out lots of interesting things. I love doing the research for my books. Unfortunately, the most interesting things I can't actually tell you because they will involve giving away the twist. In fact, in two of my books, if I told you the most interesting part of what I found out, it would definitely give away the twist. So I can't tell you that. But for The Bride, my third book, um, I was setting it in. Well, I'd seen a picture in the in Costa, in the cafe Costa, and it was this really nice black and white picture of an old tobacco warehouse. And I remember sitting with a group of my writer friends and drinking my coffee and looking at this picture and thinking, I love this. This would be a fabulous place to set something, set a thriller. I don't know what the thriller is, but I love this place. Found out where it was. It was a tobacco warehouse in London's Docklands. And then I found out that there was a guy called Paul Talling who does he does tours, walking tours of London, called, I think it's like Derelict London, I think it's called. And I thought, he was doing a walking tour of the area where this tobacco warehouse was. I thought, wow, that's brilliant. I'm going to be able to find out more about this derelict London Dockland, because I had it in my head, because I don't live in London, and when I go to London, it's only, you know, it's not to go and see London Dockland. I'll go to the theatre or something. So I had no idea what it was like. I was really ignorant. So I thought I'd be going on this wonderful walking tour of this really dilapidated, derelict area where I was going to set my novel, even though I still didn't have a story, but I wanted it to be set there. And when we went on this walk, which was fascinating, I realised that this type of dockland, totally derelict, didn't exist. You don't get them anymore in London. They've all been rebuilt and rejuvenated and regenerated, and all of these derelict wharves were no longer derelict. They're upmarket penthouse suites, but it didn't matter because I can write what I like. So I made up my own area of derelict London, and I had my wharf, my derelict, um, my upmarket penthouse wharf in a derelict area. So that was quite interesting because I just didn't realise. So I learnt a lot, and it was a great tour. Great tour.
Yeah, I'm interested by that actually. I must admit. I mean, I don't live that far from London, and I didn't even know they'd done that. So
Well, he does lots of different tours, lots of different parts of London. Really, really interesting. I'd like to do another one. Yeah, he's a very interesting guy.
yeah, I can imagine. I love London anyway. I'd spend loads of
Yeah.
time in London, except for the expense. But yeah. What's your biggest fear, and would you ever write about it?
Yeah, yes, and yeah. Well, yes, I would write about it. Yes, I have written about it. My biggest fear is the pitch black. I'm severely claustrophobic, um, and it stems. I've told this story before, so if anybody's heard this story before, sorry to bore you, but it stems from when I was a little girl and we were on holiday. My family we were on holiday in France, and we'd been driving into the night. And so when we arrived at this house, which had these big heavy shutters, I was still asleep and I was put to bed with my sister in the same room. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up. I had no idea where we were. It was absolutely pitch black. I mean, nothing. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was so pitch black. And I was absolutely petrified because I really, really thought that either I died. I couldn't decide if I died or whether had gone blind, but neither of which were a good thing when you're only about 7. I was about 6 or 7. And I remember getting out of bed and feeling along the wall to try and find the light switch or something, or the door, and I didn't know where the door was, and I didn't know where I was, and I'm calling for my mum. Oh, it was horrible. And eventually my mum heard me and came and, you know, cuddled me and explained sort of where we were and what had happened. But I think that's where it started, and I cannot bear pitch black where I can't see anything. So in my book, The Bride, my heroine, Alice, is also claustrophobic and has that same fear of the pitch black. And there are many occasions where she has to be in that situation. And it was hard to write. It was hard to write because as I was writing it, I was living it again. So I suppose I put that fear into it. So we have underground car parks with no windows. We have lifts. We have a bedroom with electric blinds that come down and shut out the light totally. If you're claustrophobic, probably not the best book for you. Maybe read one of my others. But yeah, that's my biggest fear. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get over that. Probably I'll always have it, but I just manage it.
Yeah.
Don't tube trains.
I must admit that I don't like the dark, as in, I mean, I'm not claustrophobic, but I told someone the other day when I asked what their fear was, and they said the dark, even though it's silly. I'm like, it's not. When we had a power cut, I got in my car and went and sat in McDonald's car park because the house was too creepy to stay in, and I was on my own anyway. So yeah, I don't care. I'm scared of the dark when I'm on my own and it's quiet. So it's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Do you have lots of author friends?
I have some wonderful author friends. Yeah, I have. I have two very close author friends, Tracy Fells and Liz Eales, um, who live near me. That's fantastic. Tracy I met when I was writing magazine stories, and she had had a story published at the same time as me. We both had our first stories published in the same week. And I realized that she lived near me. And so we got in touch, and we've been friends now for 8 or 9 years. No, about 8 years we've been friends, and we see each other a lot and meet up for a writer talk once a month. And a newer friend is Liz, who works for Bookercher. She writes women's fiction, and she lives very close as well. We meet up a lot, go for walks when we can. And then I have another circle of friends who live a little further out. We meet up once a month, all belong to the Romantic Novelists Association, or did. And that's always lovely seeing them. And then I have a wider circle of friends who I've met at various events, RNA events, and conferences and things. So yes, I've made a lot of new friends since I started writing, which has been wonderful. And that's one of the other good things about writing. Everybody's lovely.
Yeah. And do you get much feedback from your readers?
Yes, I do. I get feedback in all forms. I have it might be feedback on social media. People leave comments. If I've advertised my book, I'll get a lot of people saying, "I've read this book, I really loved it." That's really nice. I have I've had people writing to me via my website as well. I had a lady who told me that she'd used to live in the row of cottages where my family live in my first book, What She Saw, in the Lake District. She'd recognised it from my description, even though I don't call it the same village. She'd recognised everything and
Wow.
said, "I'm just wondering if it might be this row of cottages." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And she was so excited. She made all her family read the book. I had a Japanese student on Instagram let me know that they and their friends had used one of my books, for their reading text, their English reading text, which was interesting. I had
Wow.
somebody else who was in Australia on a cattle ranch, who said that that's where they do their reading. They read my books on their cattle ranch, and I thought, wow, this is great. I thought it was just my mum read my book, and it wasn't. There's all sorts of people. That was very exciting. No, I
Wow,
love
that's
it. I
amazing.
love feedback from my readers. It's really great.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. What's your biggest goal or your biggest dream as a writer?
My biggest dream would be to have one of my books made into a BBC drama. I mean, I'm sure everybody says that, because I'm sure that's everybody's dream, but it's mine as well. I'd love that. I think that would just be wonderful. That'd be great. But I think a dream is a dream, and you've got no control over dreams. So if that happened, wouldn't that be wonderful? But a goal is easier. My goals would be to write probably just to continue writing for as long as I love writing. That's probably my goal.
And any of your books in particular you'd like to see made, or just any of them?
Any of them. I don't care. Any of them. I think some might be harder than others. If anybody's read What She Saw, I can't tell you why it'd be difficult. It would be very difficult to make that one into a drama for a particular reason. I think my latest, His Hidden Wife, would probably make a good series, because of the setting, the dramatic setting. It's on the Jurassic Coast, and there's lots of dramatic cliff walks and action that happens on the cliff, and I think that would make a good one.
If you were to be a character in any book, what book would you like to be a character in?
Maybe Elizabeth Bennet. That's not very original, but only because I'd love to wear the Regency dresses. I'd really, really love that, and I'd love to have my hair done like that. So it's a bit of a shallow reason, but I think I'd like that.
Totally
And
with you. Totally agree.
And I'd love to go to the dances at the Pump Room. I'd absolutely love to do that. I really would. So yeah, that's my answer. Elizabeth Bennet.
Yeah. Especially if it was the most recent film that Keira Knightley plays, I'd quite happily be in that film with her.
Yeah, I'd quite happily be in any of them.
Yeah.
The one with Colin Firth's fine. I'll have that one.
Oh yes, absolutely. We're terrible, aren't we? But but they make these men play them, then what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Exactly. It's not our fault. If you were able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you choose?
I'd probably choose either Lisa Jewell and then quiz her about her success and how she managed to become so successful. Apart from writing so many brilliant books. If I can cheat and have a writer of a cookery book, because she's still a writer, then Mary Berry. I love Mary Berry. I was starstruck when I met Mary Berry at our local bookshop. She was doing a talk. She's so interesting, such an interesting lady. And I bought her book and I went to have it signed. And all the time while I was in the queue, I was thinking about the clever thing I was going to say to her when she signed my book. And I got to her, and that same situation as always, where your mind goes blank. And the clever thing I was going to say, I still can't remember what it was. And I went, hello. And that was it. That was it. Hello. So I'd quite like to meet her, and then maybe I can have a proper conversation with her and not just hello.
Yeah. I've seen her from a distance, that's all. But yeah, she's cool. I like her.
Oh, she's glamorous. She's lovely. She's lovely. And she was wearing a dress that I had tried on the previous week. And it looked amazing on her, and it looked awful on me. I hadn't bought it, but it looked amazing on her.
Yeah, I don't know how she does it. And she's amazing. What's your most embarrassing story?
Apart from meeting Mary Berry and saying hello.
Yeah, I'm sure you got something much better than that.
I have lots of embarrassing stories. My most embarrassing one was at an RNA party that was in London, and I was quite new to writing. I'd just written my first novel, and I was at that eager stage. I didn't have a publisher, I didn't have an agent. I was at that beginning of the journey, and a friend of mine introduced me to her publisher, to her editor from one of the big publishing companies. And I had that complete Mary Berry moment where I couldn't think of a single thing to say. And she said to me, so, oh, that's interesting that you've written a novel. Where would it sit on a bookshelf? Whose books would you have either side of it? And I could not remember a single author, not one name, couldn't remember anybody, nobody. Charles Dickens, I think, or Shakespeare. I think they were the only names that came into my head. I couldn't think, and I thought, well, my book probably wouldn't sit along Shakespeare and Charles Dickens. Couldn't think of anything. And I just stood there looking stupid. So that's probably one of my most embarrassing moments. And then there was another time when I was having an interview for the Sussex Wildlife Trust, where I worked for a few years as education officer, and we were told to bring wellies with us, and I brought my daughter's wellies by mistake, and my daughter was age 11, and these boots were this big, and instead of saying, I'm sorry, I've brought the wrong boots, and borrowing some, I toddled round the nature reserve in these boots this size, and it was only when I couldn't walk any further. And the person that was interviewing me said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "No, I'm wearing my child's boots." And we all just cracked up. And I got the job.
It must have, yeah. I suppose if you're willing to go around in them, then you.
I don't know what possessed me. I don't know why I didn't tell them. I'm so stupid.
Sounds like exactly something I would do as well. I don't know why either. Yeah. We're really dumb sometimes, aren't we, as
I
humans?
know. Oh,
We just,
absolutely.
yeah.
Definitely.
What was those closest to you say your worst habits are?
Well, my husband would say, well, he'd probably say lots of things. He'd say, one is the habit of the fact that I always have to have a certain mug at a certain time of day. So I have to have my breakfast mug. I have to have my coffee mug. I can't have my breakfast mug for tea at a different time of day. That has to be a different mug for tea. And my afternoon mug for tea has to be different again. And then if I have a coffee in the evening, that has to be different to the coffee mug in the morning. And he's given up now trying to remember. So he calls out, "Which mug? Which mug? The one with the gardeners on, it's coffee time," I say to him. And I'm also a bit of a pessimist, I suppose. I always think the worst. And my view is that if you think the worst of things, then things can only be so much better. And then I'm always pleasantly surprised with so many things in life because I'm always expecting them to be worse than they are. And generally they're not. So I think it's a good way of being. But he does sometimes say, "You're being really pessimistic. You're being really negative."
Yeah. You can't be disappointed though. That's my theory
No, you
with that
can't.
as well.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you're forever surprised and delighted by life.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want that?
Exactly.
If you were deserted on a desert island, what 3 things would you want with you?
Well, I probably wouldn't be deserted on desert island anyway because I don't particularly like being on a boat. So the chance of me being shipwrecked is unlikely. My first thought is my phone, but that would be no good because I wouldn't be able to charge it. So that wouldn't be any good. Fishing rod to catch some fish, except I can't fish, so maybe that's no good either. Probably 3 things, isn't it? I can have. Or I'll have a bottle. I'll have a bottle and some paper and a pen, and I'm just going to write help on it and throw it into the water because I really wouldn't survive. I can't fish and I can't catch food and I can't build a shelter. So I think someone's going to have to rescue me.
Yeah, I think I'd just give up actually if I was deserted. I've got no chance. I don't even think I could get a fish.
I don't know that.
Although one of my favourite answers to that question was a luxury hotel, which I thought was a very clever answer.
Are you allowed other people in there on the island? Ah, it's a dessert. So they'd have the luxury hotel, but nobody working in it.
Yeah, but I suppose it'd have food and shower. He was very specific about a sofa as well. But, I suppose, it would work.
Sounds more interesting than my bottle, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah, he's thought about it, which is, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. Not something he came up with off the top of his head.
No.
Yeah. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Virgil from the Thunderbirds. Actually, I think my husband looks a bit like him. He was really good looking with dark hair, and I always thought he was the best Thunderbird character. So he was my first, and my second one, if I can have two, was Eric Stewart from 10cc. Oh, I thought he was lovely. Well, I'm sure maybe he's still lovely, but I don't know. I haven't seen him for a while. But I had a big crush on him. But Virgil, he's the best.
Do you have any hidden or uncommon talents?
I don't think I've got any hidden talents or any uncommon talents. I have some unhidden and common talents. We can call it talent. I'm a dancer when I'm not writing. I don't mean a professional dancer, but I mean a hobby dancer. And I've probably been dancing for about just under 30 years, 28 years, I think, since I discovered modern jive all those years ago. And since then, I've learnt over 20 dances, different styles of dance, which I can do to various degrees of success, but I'm pretty good at ballroom and Latin and modern jive, and I can do quite a number of dances. It's quite a passion, and luckily I met my husband doing salsa to Salsa Club, so we share that hobby. But I say it's not hidden, but it's just it's a shame because obviously at the minute we can't practice our dancing, and probably won't be able to do it now because we've forgotten how. But it's something we both love doing.
And what else do you like to do when you're not writing?
When I'm not writing, I do lots of walking. Love walking. I play badminton. I'm in a choir, in a ladies' choir, and lots of reading.
And are you a big TV and film fan?
Yes. I do watch TV. We have specific things that we like watching. I'm quite lucky that my husband tends to like similar things to me. We love police dramas, and we love when they have a psychological thriller series. We always watch those. And then sort of more light-hearted things. I love a series that's on Netflix. I think it's Netflix or Prime, something like that, called This Is Us. And that is just fabulous. My daughter as well. We all watch that, and we're in about series 3 of a million series. Just love that. Like all sorts of things, really, but particularly sort of police dramas. Love watching films. No memory. My memory is terrible, and so I can watch a film, ask me what it was about the next day, gone. Same with books. I just can't remember. Just can't remember them. Terrible memory. Probably why my last book was about memory, because I don't have one.
Yeah, I'd rather read anyway. And unless I've seen a film at least 10 times, I couldn't tell you anything about it. I'm useless as well. So yeah, I totally get that.
That's not just me.
No. And books, I read a lot, and I'll get to the end of a book, turn the last page on my Kindle, names gone. Totally, I
Yeah.
have to go back into my Kindle to find the names to do a review all the time.
Oh
You
yeah,
think,
I do that with my own books. I finish one
okay.
book, start the next, and someone says, "Well, who was your character in your last book?" Gone, can't remember at all. Someone has to tell me what their names were.
um, did you decide your book covers?
No, I didn't. I love my book covers. I'm a very lucky author in the fact that I have a fabulous designer called Lisa who has designed every single one of my covers. And I have just had a sneak preview of my next one, which isn't due for a long time. And that's fabulous as well. But she just gets it right. And I love the fact that they all have like a motive to show up. They all have like one has flowers, one has a ring, one has a bow, one has some shoes. She just puts a motive which just represents what my books are about. And she chooses the colors so well as well. I have no say at all in it. No, yeah, I suppose I could, if I hated them, then I could say, if I had a good reason a good constructive reason why I didn't like it, I suppose I could say, but I haven't needed to because I just love every single one of my covers. I'm really lucky, really lucky.
Yeah,
I think they're quite unique.
yeah, they really stand out. And I mean, I can't remember if I've read any of your books, but I've definitely seen them being posted because the covers really stick in your mind. So I've
Yeah,
definitely, seen them being spoken about in all the groups. So
yes, yes. Well, you can start off with this one, Donna, because this one is on special offer at 99p.
yeah,
There you go.
okay. I know what I'm doing when I finish this then, that's fine. My TBR is not even a mountain anymore. I think it's
Oh,
just,
I can
yeah.
imagine. Just imagine.
One day I'll make a dent in it, maybe.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to ask you now. Oh,
Oh,
do you struggle coming up with character names?
yes. Yes, I do actually. I really struggled more when I was writing for the magazines, when I was writing the short stories, because I had 300 stories published, which basically meant 300 names. Well, I suppose by the time I was in year 8, I could use the name of somebody in year 1, but I was having to come up with different names, and it was like the pool of names just shrank to 5 names, and all I could think of for a man was Alex. The number of times I wrote I wrote my story with Alex, and then I thought, I'm sure the last story was Alex, and I'd look back and yes, it was Alex. And then girls, I had a phase of I had I think it was Hazel. I kept thinking of Hazel, and I don't even know anyone called Hazel. It's a really pretty name. And yet Hazel was always in my head, and I kept trying to write Hazel into my stories. So what I have now is I have a baby book, no, a baby name app on my phone, and I'll often just look through the apps and pick out a name or a phone book, um, and or what I'll do is I'll find out what the most common name was at the time that my character would have been born, and use one of those. But it's weird. You think how many names there are out there. Not everyone's called Alex, but in my
Weird.
world they are.
I don't do that. I know one person called Alex, actually. I think that's it, though.
I don't think I know anyone called Alex. It was just in my head.
So what's coming next for you?
Well, I am writing novel number 5, psychological thriller number 5, which will be coming out in October. Um, And then after that, I will be writing book 6, which will be coming out summer 22. Am I right? 22. Yeah, I get confused with the years now because I think I missed out to 2020. That's gone. Yeah, so summer 2022 will be book 6, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Awesome. Well, I don't think I have any more questions, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell
I
us.
don't think so.
So do you just want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and where they can find your books?
Right, well, my books can be found in all the usual places, Amazon, Google, Kobo, where else? Apple. So usual places, my books. You can find me on my website, which is wendyclarke.uk. I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Wendy Clarke 99 on Instagram and on Twitter, and Wendy Clarke author on Facebook. And it's always lovely to hear from people. So that's where I am. I'm always around. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank you very much for inviting me. It's been great.
Yes.